Dean Alastair Finch surveys his kingdom from a throne of oxblood leather. His office is not merely a room, it is a testament to power, a cathedral of mahogany and old money. The very air is thick with the scent of lemon polish, aged paper, and the faint, metallic tang of absolute authority. It clings to the brocade curtains, sinks into the Persian rug, and settles upon the shoulders of any lesserman who dares to enter. Sunlight, heavily filtered through the tall, mullioned windows, lands in neat, geometric patterns on the floor, illuminating dust motes that dance like tiny, captured souls. On the walls, portraits of previous deans, all men cut from the same granite of privilege, stare down with vacant, judgmental eyes. They are his ancestors in spirit, if not in blood. They are the silent chorus to his reign. Finch is a man who wears his arrogance like a well-tailored suit. It is in the severe part of his silver hair, the dismissive arch of one eyebrow, the condescending curve of his thin lips. He is not merely the dean of Northwood Preparatory Academy, he believes he is Northwood. Its legacy flows through his veins, a blue-blooded certainty that he is the rightful gatekeeper of this hallowed institution. He picks up the folder on his expansive, uncluttered desk. The name on the tab reads, Vance, Jamal. He opens it with a soft, contemptuous flick of his manicured fingers. The contents are, in his estimation, predictable. A scholarship student. Excellent grades, of course. They always have excellent grades. It is their only currency, their single, desperate ticket into a world that does not want them. He schemes the disciplinary report. Altercation, physical violence, insubordination, the words confirm everything he already believes. You can let them in the door, but you cannot change what they are. The ink on the page is a dark stain, a blemish on the pristine record of his academy. A weed in his perfectly manicured garden. Section he glances at the clock on the mantelpiece, a heavy brass monstrosity that chimes with the oppressive weight of history. They are late. Another tick in the column of their inadequacies. Punctuality is a pillar of character, and theirs, it seems, is already crumbling. A soft knock echoes on the heavy oak door. Enter, Finch booms, his voice resonating with the practiced authority of a man who has never been questioned. The door opens, and they appear. The boy, Jamal, and his father. They pause at the threshold, blinking in the dim, intimidating light of the office, like creatures emerging from a different, lesser world. Marcus Vance is a man who seems to be holding himself together with sheer will. His suit, a simple gray, is clean but worn at the cuffs and shiny at the elbows. It hangs on his frame a little too loosely, a testament to long hours and missed meals. His shoes, though polished, bear the faint, indelible scuffs of 1,000 commutes on public transportation. He carries a battered leather briefcase that has seen better decades. He is the physical embodiment of everything Finch despises: mediocrity, struggle, the quiet desperation of the working class. Beside him, Jamal is a storm of coiled energy and shame. He is a tall, athletic boy, but today he seems to be trying to shrink himself, to occupy as little space as possible. His head is bowed, his eyes fixed on the intricate pattern of the rug. A dark, ugly bruise blossoms on his left cheekbone, a stark contrast to his smooth, dark skin. It is a mark of violence, and in Finch's eyes, a confession of guilt. "You are late, Mr. Vance," Finch begins, not as a statement of fact, but as an accusation. He does not offer them a seat. He lets them stand before his desk, supplicants before a king. "Apologies, Dean Finch," Marcus says, his voice quiet but steady. The bus was running behind schedule. Finch allows a small, cruel smile to touch his lips. The bus. Of course. It is perfect. It is exactly what he expected. "I see. Well, now that you have managed to grace us with your presence, let us get to the matter at hand." He gestures vaguely toward the folder. "Your son, it appears, has a problem with aggression. A serious 1-inch. Marcus's eyes flicker toward his son, a silent exchange of support passing between them. "My son is not an aggressive boy, Dean. He is a good kid." "A good kid." Finch echoes, infusing the words with a gallon of mocking disbelief. He leans back in his chair, the leather groaning in protest. "Mr. Vance, the facts are immutable. Your son violently assaulted 3 of his fellow students in the courtyard yesterday. 3 boys from our most respected legacy families, I might add. This was not a scuffle. This was a brutal, unprovoked attack. That's not what happened, Jamal whispers, the words barely audible. His father places a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Then by all means, Finch says, spreading his hands wide in a gesture of false magnanimity. Enlighten me. Tell me your version of this incident. The word version drips with condescension, implying fabrication, a desperate story spun by the guilty. Marcus takes a deep breath, marshalling his thoughts. Jamal was being bullied. He has been for months. By those same 3 boys. They corner him, they take his things, they call him names. Yesterday, they pushed it too far. They cornered him by the lockers, they used a racial slur, and then one of them shoved him hard against the wall. He was defending himself. Finch listens to this explanation with an expression of profound boredom, as if he is hearing the most tired and predictable excuse in the world. He taps a long, elegant finger on his desk. Tap. 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 Each sound is a tiny hammer blow of dismissal. Bullying, he says, tasting the word as if it were poison. The eternal refuge of the perpetrator. It is a simple and convenient narrative, is it not? He started it, the language of the schoolyard. We, however, are not in the schoolyard, Mr. Vance. We are in an institution of higher learning, and we deal in evidence, not excuses. There is evidence, Marcus insists, his voice gaining a hard edge of frustration. There are other students who saw what happened. There are security cameras in that hallway. A flicker of something, triumph. Amusement, flashes in Finch's eyes. Ah, the cameras. Yes. Unfortunately, it seems there was a technical glitch. The footage from that specific camera during that specific time frame appears to be corrupted. A most unfortunate coincidence. He says this with the smooth, practiced ease of a man who creates his own coincidences. And as for your witnesses, he continues, his voice turning to ice, no one has come forward. Not a single student has corroborated your son's imaginative tale. On the contrary, several upstanding young men have provided statements confirming that Jamal was the sole aggressor. The air in the room becomes a physical weight, pressing down on Marcus and Jamal. The walls seem to be closing in, the portraits on the wall sneering at their plight. This is not a hearing, it is a sentencing. The verdict was decided long before they ever walked through the door. Finch leans forward, his face a mask of predatory concern. I understand that this is difficult to hear, Mr. Vance. It is never easy for a parent to accept the true nature of their child. But you must understand our position. Northwood has a zero-tolerance policy for violence. We cannot and will not allow one rotten apple to spoil the barrel. It is a matter of safety. Of standards. Zero tolerance. The phrase hangs in the air, a cudgel used to beat down any argument, any plea for context or understanding. It is a shield for the biased, a weapon for the unjust. Marcus feels a slow burn of anger begin in his gut. He sees the trap, the perfectly constructed, hermetically sealed narrative that Finch has built around his son. Every door of appeal is being slammed shut in his face. So you're not even going to investigate? Marcus asks, his voice low and dangerous. You're just going to take the word of 3 boys with a history of problems. Finch's eyes narrow. A history? And what would you know of their history, Mr. Vance? Are you suggesting that the sons of our most generous benefactors, boys from families who have built this very institution, are liars? The implication is clear. There are 2 kinds of people at Northwood, those who belong, and those who are here on sufferance. Justice, like tuition, is a luxury not afforded to everyone. I'm suggesting, Marcus says, choosing his words with care, that you have made up your mind without hearing all the facts. You see my son, and you see a thug. You see me, and you see an absentee father from the wrong side of the tracks. You are not interested in the truth. For the first time, Finch's mask of detached superiority cracks. A flash of genuine, venomous anger appears. You are in no position to lecture me on truth, sir. I have been the dean of this academy for 25 years. I have built it into a bastion of excellence. I have dedicated my life to upholding its standards. And I will not have those standards threatened by street corner brawling. He stands up, a towering figure of righteous indignation. This meeting is over. My decision is made. He doubles down, reinforcing the walls of his fortress. To demonstrate his supposed fairness, he presses a button on his intercom. Mr. Peterson, please come to my office. A moment later, a small, nervous man with thinning hair and a perpetually worried expression scurries in. This is Philip Peterson, the school counselor. He is a man who entered his profession with noble ideals, all of which have been slowly eroded by the political realities of a place like Northwood. He avoids eye contact with Marcus and Jamal, his gaze fixed on a point somewhere on Finch's expensive desk. Mr. Peterson, Finch says, his tone now smooth and commanding, you spoke with young Jamal here after the incident, did you not? Yes, Dean Finch. I did, Peterson stammers. And did he, at any point, express remorse for his violent outburst? Finch asks, leading the witness with the skill of a seasoned prosecutor. Peterson swallows hard. He glances nervously at Jamal, a flicker of guilt in his watery eyes. He was very agitated, Dean. He said. He said he was provoked. Provoked, Finch repeats, letting the word hang in the air. But did he admit to striking the other boys? To throwing the first and, indeed, all of the punches? The counselor's shoulders slump. The fight has gone out of him, if it was ever there to begin with. He is a mouse in a room with a cat, and he knows it. He admitted to fighting, yes. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. That will be all, Finch says with a dismissive wave. The counselor scurries out of the room, a portrait of defeated good intentions. His presence has served its purpose, to provide the illusion of due process, to rubber-stamp the dean's foregone conclusion. The system is not just broken, it is a finely tuned machine designed to produce this exact outcome. With the last obstacle of pretense removed, Finch moves in for the kill. He raises the stakes, transforming the threat from abstract to horrifyingly concrete. He picks up a single sheet of paper from his desk. It is the expulsion form. He holds it between his thumb and forefinger as if it were a dead insect. This is your son's official notification of expulsion from Northwood Preparatory Academy, he announces, his voice ringing with a chilling finality. He slides it across the polished wood, the sound a soft, sinister hiss. Effective immediately. Jamal lets out a small, choked sound. His dream of attending this school, of using it as a springboard to a better life, is dissolving into ash before his very eyes. All his hard work, all his late-night studying, all of it erased by one man's prejudice. Marcus places a firm hand on his son's arm, a silent command to stay strong. But inside, his own heart is pounding with a furious, helpless rage. Finch is not finished. He wants not just to expel the boy, but to salt the earth of his future. He leans forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, venomous whisper. And I want you to be very clear about what this means, Mr. Vance. This is not just a removal. This is a permanent black mark on his record. It will follow him. Every college application, every scholarship opportunity. They will all see this. Expelled for violent conduct. No decent university will touch him. I will personally see to it that my colleagues at other institutions are made aware of his temperament. He pauses, letting the poison sink in. He watches their faces, savoring their despair. This is the part he enjoys the most. Not just the exercise of power, but the confirmation of it in the eyes of the powerless. Furthermore, he adds with a cruel smirk, the families of the boys your son assaulted are considering pressing criminal charges. Assault. Battery. I imagine a stint in a juvenile detention center would be educational. It might put him in a place with people more his own kind. The threat is monstrous. The complete and utter destruction of a young boy's life, all for the crime of standing up for himself. Marcus stares at Finch, and for a moment, he sees him for what he truly is. Not a dean, not an educator, but a petty tyrant ruling over a small, gilded kingdom, a man whose soul has been rotted away by a lifetime of unchecked privilege and bigotry. And then, Finch crosses the line. He looks Marcus up and down, his gaze lingering on the worn suit, the tired lines around his eyes. The dean's expression softens into one of faux pity, a look far more insulting than his open contempt. You know, Mr. Vance, Finch says, his voice dripping with condescension, I almost feel sorry for you. People like you work so hard for a chance to get a seat at the table, but you simply don't understand the rules. You don't belong here. Your son doesn't belong here. He gestures around the opulent office. This world was not built for you. It was built by men like me, for boys like them. He nods toward the window, in the direction of the courtyard where the real victims of the assault are probably laughing with their friends. Perhaps if you spent less time working your, whatever jobs you work, and more time at home raising your son properly, teaching him his place, we wouldn't be in this position. But I suppose that's too much to ask. That is it. The final, unforgivable insult. The attack not just on his son, not just on his economic status, but on his very worth as a father. Something inside Marcus Vance shifts. A switch is flipped. The quiet, weary father recedes, and something else, something cold and ancient and formidable, rises to take his place. The despair in his eyes hardens into something that looks chillingly like focus. The slump in his shoulders straightens into a spine of pure steel. He does not raise his voice. He does not shout or protest. He simply looks at Dean Alastair Finch, a long, unnerving silence stretching between them. And in that silence, the entire balance of power in the room begins to subtly, irrevocably, change. Finch, for the first time, feels a faint, unfamiliar prickle of unease. He has mistaken a sleeping lion for a lamb. As Dean Finch is smugly waiting for Marcus to sign the expulsion papers, to accept his defeat and shuffle away with his ruined son, a sound cuts through the oppressive quiet of the office. It is a shrill, insistent ring. It is not the polite chime of his main office line. This is a different sound, a piercing electronic tone from a second, rarely used telephone on his credenza. It is a private, direct line to the highest echelons of the school district's administration. In his 25 years as dean, it has rung perhaps 5 times. Finch frowns, annoyed at the interruption to his moment of triumph. He holds up a finger to Marcus as if to say, "Your destruction can wait a moment." He strides over to the credenza and snatches up the receiver. "Finch," he barks into the phone, his voice sharp with impatience. He listens. The change that comes over him is immediate and profound. The ruddy, confident color drains from his face, leaving behind a pasty, sickly white. His arrogant posture deflates, his shoulders slumping slightly. His eyes, which had been alight with cruel victory, now widen with confusion and a dawning, sickening dread. "What?" he says, his voice a strangled whisper. "I don't understand." "Who?" "No, that's not possible." The hearing is already concluded. He listens again, his knuckles turning white as he grips the phone. An oversight clause. Personally. But why this case? It's a simple disciplinary matter. Yes, I understand. Yes, of course. He's here now. He hangs up the phone, his hand trembling slightly. He places the receiver back in its cradle with the unnatural care of a man trying to contain a tremor. He turns to face Marcus, his expression a chaotic mixture of disbelief and fear. At that exact moment, the heavy oak doors to the office swing open with a resounding thud. They are not pushed gently, they are thrown open, as if by a great and powerful force. Standing in the doorway is a stern-looking woman in a sharp business suit, her face impassive. Beside her stand 2 uniformed campus security officers. They do not look at Finch. They look at Marcus. Dean Finch stares at the newcomers, then back at the men in the worn gray suit. Nothing is making sense. His perfectly controlled world is suddenly spinning off its axis. And then, Marcus Vance moves. He slowly, deliberately, straightens his tie. He reaches down and picks up his battered briefcase from the floor. He places it on the corner of Finch's immaculate desk with a solid, definitive thud. The sound echoes in the stunned silence of the room. His entire demeanor has transformed. The weary, beaten-down father is gone. In his place stands a man of immense, quiet authority. His eyes, once clouded with worry, are now as clear and sharp as chips of obsidian. They bore into Finch with an intensity that makes the dean take an involuntary step backward. "Dean Finch," Marcus says, and his voice is completely different. The quiet deference is gone, replaced by a calm, resonant baritone that commands the attention of everyone in the room. It is the voice of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "I believe we need to restart this meeting." He clicks open the latches on his briefcase. They snap open with a sound like a judge's gavel. "My name is Marcus Vance." He pauses, letting his name hang in the air, letting Finch search his memory, letting the pieces click into place in the dean's panicked mind. The new hire everyone had been whispering about for weeks. The mysterious, high-powered lawyer brought in by the superintendent to clean house. The man nobody had yet met. And as of 8 o'clock this morning, Marcus continues, his voice as cold and precise as a surgeon's scalpel, I am the lead counsel and head of internal affairs for the entire Northwood Unified School District. He looks directly into Finch's terrified eyes. Which means, for all intents and purposes, you now work for me. The power in the room does not just shift. It reverses with the force of a tidal wave. Finch's authority, which moments ago seemed as solid and ancient as the mahogany walls, evaporates into nothing. He is no longer the king in his castle. He is a trespasser. And this, Marcus says, gesturing to the expulsion form on the desk, is no longer a disciplinary hearing. He sweeps the form off the desk and into a wastebasket. This is a preliminary investigation into your conduct, your administration, and your flagrant violations of both school district policy and federal law. Jamal, who has been watching this unfold in stunned silence, now looks at his father as if seeing him for the first time. The quiet, tired man who worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, who always seemed a little stooped by the weight of the world, is gone. This man, this powerful, confident, articulate stranger, this is his father. A wave of awe and fierce pride washes over him, chasing away the shame and fear. Finch stammers, his mind struggling to process the cataclysmic reversal of his reality. You can't. This is a trick. Who are you? I'm the men you just called, people like you, Marcus replies, his voice devoid of emotion. I'm the father you just accused of not raising his son properly. I'm the concerned parent who wanted to have a reasonable conversation about his child's well-being. But you weren't interested in that, man. He turns to the woman in the doorway. Ma'am, would you please secure the room? No one enters or leaves. And please ensure our witnesses are comfortable in the conference room next door. Witnesses. Finch squeaks, his voice cracking. Oh, yes, Marcus says, turning his devastatingly calm gaze back to the dean. There are always witnesses, Alistair. You just have to know how to get them to talk. The arrogance has completely melted from Finch's face, replaced by the raw, primal terror of a man who has just realized the cage door has slammed shut behind him. He looks from Marcus's hard eyes to the impassive security officers, and he understands. He is trapped. The hunter has become the prey. Marcus opens his briefcase. The interior is a stark contrast to its worn exterior. It is a mobile command center, perfectly organized with pristine, color-coded binders, a sleek tablet, and several small, high-tech recording devices. He places one of the recorders on the center of Finch's desk. A small red light begins to blink. For the record, Marcus states, his voice formal and clear, this is Marcus Vance, lead counsel for the Northwood Unified School District, conducting a formal interview with Dean Alistair Finch on October 26. Dean, are you aware you are being recorded? Finch can only nod, his throat suddenly too dry to form words. Let us begin with your so-called zero-tolerance policy for violence, Marcus says, his tone conversational, yet underscored with a razor's edge. He taps a command into his tablet, and a nearby wall-mounted monitor, previously dark, hums to life. A spreadsheet appears on the screen. It is a meticulously compiled list of disciplinary infractions at Northwood over the past 5 years. I took the liberty of reviewing the Academy's records last night, Marcus explains. Fascinating reading. For example, let's look at the records of the 3 young men whom my son supposedly assaulted. Braden Croft, son of alumnus and board trustee Jonathan Croft. A new page fills the screen, detailing a litany of offenses: vandalism of school property, cheating on a midterm exam, 2 separate incidents of documented harassment against younger students. Next to each offense, in the action taken column, are the words, parental conference. Demerit issued. And here is Landon Hayes, Marcus continues, swiping the screen. Another list appears. Cyberbullying, possession of alcohol on school grounds, leaving campus without permission. The consequences. After-school detention, suspended. Warning issued. And finally, Carter Sterling. 3 documented cases of academic dishonesty and 1 particularly nasty incident involving a racial slur directed at a cafeteria worker, which was reported by another teacher. He lets that hang in the air. The action taken. Carter was asked to write a 200-word apology letter. A letter, I have confirmed, that his father's personal assistant actually wrote for him. Marcus turns his gaze from the screen to Finch. A very flexible zero-tolerance policy you have here, Dean. It seems to tolerate quite a lot, depending on the size of the donor check attached to the student's name. My son, on the other hand, with a flawless academic and behavioral record, defends himself against a racially motivated attack, and his punishment is immediate, permanent expulsion and the threat of criminal charges. Does that seem equitable to you? Finch opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. He looks like a fish gasping for air on a dry dock. You mentioned the security cameras were corrupted, Marcus says, his voice dangerously soft. Another most unfortunate coincidence. However, our district's IT department has some truly gifted technicians. They are amazing at data recovery. He taps his tablet again. The screen changes, displaying grainy but clear footage from the hallway. It shows Jamal at his locker. It shows Braden, Landon, and Carter approaching him. It shows them surrounding him, Landon snatching a book from his hands while Carter shoves him against the lockers. The audio is faint, but the final, ugly slur shouted by Braden is unmistakable. Only then, after being physically assaulted and verbally abused, does Jamal push back, and the fight begins. The video plays on a loop. The shove. The slur. The retaliation. The lie, exposed in stark black and white. This footage, Marcus says calmly, tells a very different story from the one in your report. In your version, my son is the aggressor. In reality, he is the victim. Which means your report is not just inaccurate, Dean. It is a fabrication. A deliberate falsehood. That is grounds for immediate termination. But we are just getting started. Marcus gestures to the woman at the door. Please send in Mr. Peterson. The terrified school counselor is ushered back into the room. This time, however, his fear is directed entirely at Finch. He looks at Marcus with eyes that are pleading for rescue. Mr. Peterson, Marcus says, his voice now gentle, reassuring. You are now under the protection of the district counsel's office. You are a material witness in an official investigation. Any attempt by Dean Finch or anyone else to intimidate or retaliate against you will be met with the full force of the law. Do you understand? Peterson nods, a visible wave of relief washing over him. The shield he so desperately needed has finally appeared. Now, Marcus continues, please tell us what really happened when you tried to file your initial report about this incident. The one where you correctly identified Jamal as the victim of sustained bullying. The counselor takes a deep, shuddering breath. He points a trembling finger at Finch. He called me into his office. He had my report in his hand. He told me it was unacceptable. He said the Croft and Sterling families were cornerstones of the Northwood community, and that my report would cause unnecessary complications. He ordered me to rewrite it. He said if I wanted to keep my job and my pension, I would write that Jamal Vance was the instigator and that the other boys were the victims. The confession hangs in the air, damning and absolute. It is the betrayal that unravels the entire conspiracy. He threatened you, Marcus states, not as a question but as a fact. Yes, Peterson whispers. He said I had a family to think about. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. You may wait outside, Marcus says gently. As the counselor leaves, Marcus turns his attention back to the shattered men behind the desk. Finch has sunk into his leather throne, no longer a king but a prisoner in his own collapsing castle. Coercing a witness. Falsifying an official report, Marcus ticks off the offenses on his fingers. That elevates this from an administrative issue to a criminal one. But the rot goes deeper, doesn't it, Alistair? He swipes the tablet again. Now, the screen displays bank statements. Private, institutional accounts. Highlighted are 3 recent, very large transactions. Here is a $500,000 donation to the Dean's discretionary fund from Jonathan Croft, dated 2 days after his son Braden was caught vandalizing the science lab. Here is another, from the Hayes family, made the day after Landon was caught with a flask of vodka at the homecoming dance. And a third, a transfer to the Northwood Athletics Enrichment Program, from the Sterlings, processed just this morning. Marcus looks up from the tablet, his eyes burning with cold fire. It's a simple, dirty little system, isn't it? The sons of the rich and powerful break the rules, you make the problem disappear, and in return, you get a hefty donation to your private slush fund. It's bribery. It's fraud. It's a racketeering enterprise disguised as an elite private school. At this, Finch finally breaks. The last vestige of his composure shatters into a million pieces. He leaps to his feet, his face purple with rage and terror. You have no right. This is an outrage. My family built this school. My name is on the library. You are a diversity hire, an affirmative action nobody, sent here to tear down everything we have built. He rants, a torrent of vitriol and self-incrimination pouring from his lips. He screams about tradition, about legacy, about the purity of the institution. He uses ugly, racially charged language, calling Marcus an uppity usurper, and his son a charity case. He is no longer a dean. He is a cornered animal, spitting and snarling, exposing the raw, festering prejudice that has fueled his entire life. Marcus does not react. He simply stands there, calm and implacable, letting Finch destroy himself. The small red light on the recorder blinks steadily, capturing every hateful, damning word. The tirade finally exhausts itself, and Finch collapses back into his chair, panting, his eyes wild. In the ensuing silence, Marcus speaks, his voice a low, chilling whisper. Thank you, Dean. That was very illuminating. You have just provided a full confession, on tape, to motive and prejudice. I believe we now have everything we need. He taps his tablet one last time. There is just one final piece of evidence I would like to share, Marcus says, his voice taking on a tone of grim finality. The final nail, as it were. He looks at Finch, a flicker of something almost like pity in his eyes. You see, Alistair, your biggest mistake wasn't the bribery or the falsified reports. It wasn't even your disgusting prejudice. Your biggest mistake was your arrogance. You believed you were so untouchable that you could be careless. The screen on the wall flickers, and the spreadsheet and video footage are replaced by an audio waveform. All major administrative phone lines in this district have been automatically recorded for quality assurance purposes for the last 6 months, Marcus explains. A new policy I recommended when I was hired. You must have missed that memo. He presses play. Finch's voice, oozing with smug confidence, fills the room. It is a recording of a call he made just an hour ago to Jonathan Croft, Braden's father. No, Jonathan, it's all handled, Finch's recorded voice says, followed by a low chuckle. The father is some working-class nobody, and the kid is shaking in his boots. Don't you worry about a thing. I'll make an example of the boy. We need to maintain a certain standard here, you understand. Can't have their kind getting ideas. We'll have him out on the street by noon, and your Braden won't even have a demerit on his record. Consider it taken care of. The recording continues, but Marcus pauses it there. The words "their kind" hang in the air like a toxic fog, an explicit, undeniable confession of racial bias. It is the smoking gun, the irrefutable proof that this was never about a fight in a courtyard. It was about bigotry, pure and simple. At that moment, the door opens again. This time, it is the superintendent herself, a formidable woman named Dr. Eleanor Vance, no relation, a fact Marcus had privately found ironic. Her face is a thundercloud of fury. She is flanked not by campus security, but by 2 uniformed officers from the city police department. She strides to the desk and looks down at the utterly broken man in the leather chair, her eyes filled with a profound and glacial contempt. Alistair Finch, she says, her voice ringing with an authority that eclipses any power Finch ever thought he had. On behalf of the Board of Trustees for the Northwood Unified School District, you are terminated, effective immediately. Your contract is null and void due to gross misconduct and criminal activity. She gestures to the officers. Your presence is no longer required on this campus. Or any other campus in this district. Ever again. The officers step forward. They do not put him in handcuffs, not yet. The humiliation will be more public than that. One officer stands on either side of him. Sir, you need to come with us, one of them says, his voice polite but unyielding. They escort him from behind his desk, the desk that had been his altar of power for a quarter of a century. They lead him toward the door, past Marcus, past Jamal. As he is being led away, a final, pathetic flicker of defiance ignites in Finch. He turns and snarls at Marcus, his face a twisted mask of hatred. You'll regret this. You've destroyed a great institution. You've destroyed my life. Marcus looks at him, his expression unreadable. He is no longer angry. He is simply finished. No, Dean, he says, his voice calm and clear, cutting through the tension in the room. You destroyed yourself. You did it the moment you judged my son by the color of his skin, and you judged me by the price of my suit. You looked at us and you saw a janitor and a thug. You saw what your prejudice wanted you to see. Marcus takes a step closer, and his final words are delivered with the quiet, devastating force of a wrecking ball. That is why you are finished. Because you were so busy looking down on us, you never saw the man who was coming to take your entire world apart. The officers lead Finch out into the main administrative hallway. The news has spread like wildfire. Dozens of teachers, administrators, and students have gathered, their faces a mixture of shock, confusion, and for some who had suffered under his reign, quiet, dawning elation. They watch as the once untouchable Dean Alastair Finch is publicly and unceremoniously marched out of the building, a king being frog-marched from his own fallen kingdom. The public annihilation is complete. The fallout is swift, brutal, and meticulously thorough. It is a cleansing fire, and Marcus Vance holds the torch. Alastair Finch's ruin is absolute. Fired in disgrace, his name becomes a cautionary tale whispered in the hushed corridors of academia. The district attorney, armed with the mountain of evidence Marcus provides, files a litany of criminal charges: fraud, embezzlement, bribery, coercion of a witness, and multiple civil rights violations. Faced with the undeniable audio and video evidence, Finch's high-priced lawyers can do little more than negotiate a plea. He is sentenced to 15 years in a federal prison, a place where his name and his family's legacy mean less than nothing. His pension is seized. His family's name is quietly removed from the library and the science wing. He is erased. The three families who believed their wealth could buy their son's impunity learn a harsh and expensive lesson. The Crofts, the Hayes, and the Sterlings are slapped with a massive civil lawsuit from the school district, led by Marcus, to reclaim the hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations. They are also investigated by the IRS for illegal attempts to influence a tax-exempt institution. Their sons, Braden, Landon, and Carter, are summarily and permanently expelled from Northwood. Without Finch to protect them, they also face juvenile court for assault and battery. Their futures, once paved with gold, are now fractured and uncertain. The complicit staff members who enabled Finch's corrupt reign are purged. The vice principal who consistently ignored complaints about bullying is fired. The athletic director who helped funnel the bribe money is also terminated and faces his own legal troubles. The system is not just shaken, it is dismantled, piece by piece. For the heroes, the rewards are as profound as the villains' punishments are severe. Jamal Vance's expulsion is not just expunged, it is publicly and formally rescinded by the superintendent at a school-wide assembly. He receives a written apology from the Board of Trustees, along with a full, 4-year scholarship to the university of his choice, endowed by the district itself. He returns to Northwood not as a pariah, but as a symbol of resilience and truth. The students who were once too afraid to speak up now greet him with respect and admiration. The ugly bruise on his cheek fades, replaced by a quiet confidence he will carry for the rest of his life. Philip Peterson, the counselor who found his courage, is lauded as a hero. He is immediately reinstated and promoted to head of student wellness, given expanded authority and a mandate to create a real, effective anti-bullying program. He becomes a fierce advocate for the students, his voice, once silenced, now amplified and respected. And Marcus Vance becomes a legend. His story spreads throughout the district and beyond. He is the quiet warrior, the underestimated avenger who brought a corrupt giant to his knees. He is offered prestigious positions at high-powered law firms, but he turns them down. His work at Northwood has just begun. He uses his position as lead counsel to launch the Equity and Accountability Initiative. He personally reviews every major disciplinary action taken by Finch over the past decade. His investigation uncovers dozens of similar cases, students from underprivileged backgrounds expelled on flimsy evidence while the children of the wealthy were given pass after pass. One by one, those wrongful expulsions are overturned. Lives that were derailed are put back on track. Marcus establishes the Second Chance Scholarship Fund, seeded by the money recovered from the corrupt families. It is designed specifically to support promising students from low-income backgrounds, ensuring that Northwood's gates are truly open to all who have the talent, not just the wealth. The old, rotting foundation is torn out, and under his guidance, a new one, built on integrity and justice, is laid in its place. 6 months later. The office of the lead counsel is nothing like the dark, mahogany tomb that Finch once occupied. It is bright, modern, and open, with large windows that offer a panoramic view of the Northwood campus. The walls are not lined with glowering portraits of dead men, but with student art and photos of scholarship recipients. The air smells of fresh coffee and possibility. Marcus Vance stands by the window, looking out at the students walking on the paths below. He wears a simple but well-fitting blue suit now, a gift from the appreciative school board. He looks different. The weariness is gone from his eyes, replaced by a calm, steady purpose. The door opens and Jamal walks in, grinning from ear to ear. He is no longer the shrinking, shame-faced boy from Finch's office. He is tall, confident, and vibrant. He waves a thick envelope in his hand. "I got in," Jamal says, his voice bursting with excitement. "Early admission. Full ride. It's happening, Dad." Marcus turns, a wide, proud smile spreading across his face. He pulls his son into a fierce hug. "I never doubted it for a second, son. Never." They stand there for a moment, father and son, two victors looking out over a world they helped to change. The oppressive silence of the old regime has been replaced by the sounds of a new, more hopeful era. Later, as Jamal heads off to meet his friends, a young, idealistic lawyer on Marcus's new staff pokes her head in. "Mr. Vance. The Peterson report on the new mentorship program is ready for your review." "Thank you, Sarah." "Bring it in," he says, taking a seat behind his desk, a desk clear of everything but the work of building a better future. The moral of the story settles, not as a shouted lesson, but as a quiet, undeniable truth. Arrogance born of prejudice is the most profound kind of blindness. It creates a world of false assumptions, where a worn suit signifies a weak man and a different skin color signifies guilt. Dean Finch lived in such a world. He built it around himself, a fortress of privilege and contempt, and he believed it was impregnable. But his fortress was a house of cards. His power was an illusion, contingent on the silence of the intimidated and the deference of the underestimated. All it took to bring it all crashing down was one quiet man whom he refused to see. A father who was also a lawyer. A victim who was also an avenger. A man who proved that true power is not found in a title, or a trust fund, or a mahogany desk. It is found in integrity. It is forged in the love for a child. And it is wielded most devastatingly by those who fight for justice when they have nothing left to lose.